My friends, when we speak of the human heart, we speak not of a mere organ of flesh, but of a symbol of life's deepest mystery, the center from which meaning radiates. It is the hearth of the soul, the sacred chamber in which the divine and the human meet, and yet it is also the place where we are most wounded. Every man and woman who walks this earth will one day encounter the shattering of this inner vessel, what we call heartbreak. But heartbreak is not merely the loss of love or the pain of abandonment, it is the collapse of an image, the breaking of an illusion, the death of a pattern that once gave life coherence. It is the soul's dark night, the psychic winter, through which new growth must one day emerge. For the heart, though it bleeds, is not destroyed, it is being transformed. The psyche, in its infinite wisdom, often uses pain as its most eloquent teacher. We do not evolve through comfort, we evolve through rupture, through those moments when what we thought we knew dissolves before our eyes, and we are forced to meet ourselves anew. Heartbreak, then, is not the end of love, but the beginning of consciousness. It is the awakening of the soul from the dream of dependency, from the illusions of possession, from the childish belief that another can complete what is, in truth, eternally incomplete within us. In every relationship, we form something of the unconscious, stirs. The other person does not merely enter our lives, they enter our psyche. They touch not only the surface of our personality, but awaken the archetypal figures that dwell below it. The beloved becomes the mirror in which we see both our divinity and our shadow. Through them, we encounter parts of ourselves that were long forgotten, exiled, or the need. This is why love can feel so divine. And why loss can feel like this? Because symbolically, both are encounters with the self, that vast totality of our being that includes all that we are and all that we are not yet. The unconscious uses relationship as an alchemical vessel, a crucible of transformation. Within its heat, the raw elements of the soul are fused, separated, and refined. Love draws out the highest in us, tenderness, devotion, sacrifice, but it also summons what lies hidden in the depths, jealousy, fear, rage, insecurity. These opposites, light and dark, come together in the intimate theater of human connection. To love truly is to stand in the tension of these opposites without fleeing into illusion. But modern man, I fear, no longer understands this sacred process. He seeks pleasure without depth, union without transformation. He wants to possess love without being changed by it. And so when love fails, as it inevitably does in its temporal forms, he interprets the pain as meaningless, as misfortune or mistake, yet the soul does not see it. So the soul knows that what is broken is not punishment, but invitation, an invitation to descend into the depths of one's own being and recover what was projected outward. When we fall in love, we project our inner image of the divine onto another human being. We see in them what we have not yet claimed in ourselves: beauty, wisdom, strength, passion. The beloved becomes the screen upon which the psyche casts its sacred images, but no human can bear such projection forever. Sooner or later, the illusion cracks. We discover that the other is not the god or goddess we worshipped, but a mortal soul, as flawed and yearning as we are. And when this revelation comes, when the image collapses, we experience heartbreak. This moment of collapse is the soul's initiation. It is the threshold between unconscious love and conscious love, between possession and communion. The ego cries out, believing something precious has been lost. But the deeper truth is that something within us is being born. The heart that breaks is not the heart that dies. It is the heart that expands. The heart that learns to love not as possession, but as participation in the mystery of being. In every heartbreak, there is a call from the self, a whisper from the divine within, saying, come closer, see what you have been unwilling to see. The pain forces us to turn inward, to look not at the other who has left, but at the inner figures who have been awakened, the child who fears abandonment, the lover who longs for union, the warrior who resists vulnerability. In doing so, we begin the work of integration. We must ask ourselves, who within me has been wounded by this loss? Who within me clings to the past? Who within me cannot forgive? When we approach our suffering with such questions, we are no longer victims of circumstance, but participants in transformation. The heartbreak becomes a map leading us back to the unhealed parts of the soul. But this journey is not one of analysis alone, it is one of surrender. The ego cannot command the process of healing. It must learn to yield to the deeper rhythm of life, to allow the unconscious to guide its unfolding. This surrender feels like death, and in a sense, it is. For a part of us must indeed die the part that believed it could control love, the part that demanded certainty where only mystery exists. In mythic language, heartbreak is the descent into the underworld, the journey of Inanna, of Orpheus, of Christ. It is the archetype of death and rebirth enacted in the most intimate theater of the heart. When love is lost, the psyche descends. It moves from the bright realm of idealization into the dark realm of truth. It confronts what has been hidden dependency, fear, the hunger for validation. Only by descending into this inner darkness can we ascend again, renewed and whole. It is not by accident that the symbols of love and death are so intertwined in art, religion, and dream. To love deeply is to risk annihilation. For love demands that we expose the most vulnerable parts of the psyche. It asks us to be seen, to be known, and in being known, to face the terror of rejection. Thus, heartbreak is not merely the loss of another, but the confrontation with our own mortality, our own limitations, our own solitude. Yet there, in the ashes of loss, something miraculous occurs. The ego, stripped of illusion, comes face to face with the self, the eternal source that lies beyond all temporal attachments. What we called my love becomes revealed as love itself, an energy, a principle, a divine current, flowing through us but not belonging to us. In that moment, the heart awakens to a greater truth. Love is not something we possess, it is something that possesses us. And perhaps that is why the universe allows the heart to break, so that we may learn this truth through experience, not through concept. For the soul does not evolve through knowledge alone, it evolves through living, through the alchemy of joy and sorrow, union and separation, creation and dissolution. If you listen closely in the silence that follows heartbreak, you may hear the whisper of something ancient, a voice saying, "This pain is holy." It is the cry of the old self dying and the birth cry of the new. It is the soul remembering its own vastness, its own depth, its own unbroken connection to the eternal. And so, my friends, heartbreak, though it shatters, does not destroy. It is the soul's way of widening the vessel, of preparing it to hold more love, more consciousness, more alive. The tragedy of modern man is not that he suffers heartbreak, but that he seeks to avoid it through distraction, through cynicism, through numbing the very organ that was meant to feel the divine pulse of existence. The heart must break open again and again until it becomes transparent to love itself, until it no longer clings, but radiates, for love is not fulfilled in possession, but in transformation. And it is here, at this precipice of loss and awakening, that the deeper journey begins the journey, not back to the one who left, but inward, towards the one who remains. When the heart begins its descent after loss, it does not move in straight lines. It moves in circles, like the great spirals of nature, drawing the wounded soul inward through patterns of grief, memory, and reflection. At first, we resist, we clutch at the fragments of what was, as if holding tighter could restore what has already dissolved into the past. But psyche does not obey the commands of the ego. It moves according to its own necessity, a necessity that always leads us, though often unwillingly, toward greater wholeness. This movement inward is the very rhythm of individuation. It is the soul's instinct toward completion, not through perfection, but through integration. The one who has known heartbreak stands at a sacred threshold, the threshold between the outer and inner world. What was once projected outward as the source of love now calls from within. The task of the individual is to reclaim this projection, to gather back the divine energy once placed upon another, and to recognize it as one's own essence. To understand this process, one must look not only at the personal story, but at the archetypal pattern beneath it. Every heartbreak, in truth, mirrors an ancient drama, the myth of the separation between the human and the divine. In our longing for another, we are, at a deeper level, longing for reunion with the lost God within the forgotten image of the self. The beloved appears as the emissary of this divine aspect, awakening the memory of our own inner completeness. But once the image has served its purpose, it fades, leaving us face to face with the eternal question, will we now turn inward to find what we sought outside? It is here that most people falter. They seek to escape the pain, to replace the lost love with another, or to numb the wound through distraction. Yet the wound itself is sacred. It is the opening through which the soul breathes. And if one can remain present with the pain not as victim, But as witness, one will find that it begins to transform. The sharpness softens. The darkness reveals its hidden light. What once felt like loss begins to shimmer with meaning. I have often said that the shadow is not merely evil, it is the doorway to the divine. The same is true of heartbreak. For in the agony of love lost, the shadow of the heart is revealed. The parts of us that cling, that fear, that demand, that refuse to be alone, these are not to be condemned, but to be embraced. For they, too, are fragments of the soul, exiled long ago into darkness. The greatest illusion of love is that we believe it will save us from ourselves. Yet the purpose of love is the opposite, to reveal ourselves to ourselves. Through love, the unconscious becomes visible. Through heartbreak, it becomes undeniable. The beloved then is the mirror in which the unconscious seeks to be seen. And once we have looked, truly looked, that mirror may shatter, for its purpose has been fulfilled. You see, every soul carries within it an image, what I call the imago Dei, the image of God. This image seeks to unfold itself in time through the experiences of human life. It cannot be reached through intellect, nor can it be manufactured by will. It unfolds through experience, through suffering, through the slow, painful work of becoming conscious. Heartbreak, in this sense, is not an accident of fate, but a necessary moment in the soul's evolution. When the heart is broken, it exposes what lies beneath the surface of the personality, the persona. That mask we wear before the world, the persona is shattered, and beneath it, the raw soul is revealed. This is why heartbreak feels like death, because it is the death of the mask, the collapse of the false self that once believed it knew who it was. In that collapse, the true work begins to meet the inner figures that emerge from the ruins. In the quiet after loss, we begin to encounter the voices of the inner world, the frightened child, the abandoned lover, the stern parent, the silent sage. Each of these figures carries an aspect of the psyche that has long been suppressed. The work of the soul is to listen, to allow each voice to speak, to bring each into the light of consciousness. This is the process of integration. The alchemy of the inner life, modern culture, in its haste and superficiality, fears such descent. It offers us endless distractions, false solutions, and glittering illusions to keep us from meeting ourselves. But there is no shortcut to wholeness. One must descend into the darkness, face the dragon of despair, and retrieve the treasure hidden there. The treasure, as myth and dream so often reveal, is not found outside the monster's lair, but within it. The thing we fear most guards the very thing we need most. And what is this treasure? It is the capacity to love without illusion, to love without projection, without dependency, without the demand that the other complete us. It is the capacity to love as the self loves freely, fully, without fear of loss. This kind of love is not romantic in the ordinary sense. It is spiritual, archetypal, transformative. It sees the other not as an object of desire, but as a mirror of the divine. To reach such love, however, one must first endure the purification of heartbreak. The fire that consumes the false is the same fire that illuminates the true. The heart that has been burned by loss is the heart that can hold compassion. Only the one who has known the abyss can stand without fear in the presence of another's pain. You must understand that love, at its highest form, is not a sentiment. It is a revelation. It is the moment when the veil between the finite and the infinite grows thin, and we glimpse the divine in human form. But such revelation demands a vessel strong enough to contain it. The fragile ego cannot bear the full radiance of love. It must be expanded, and this expansion often comes through suffering. It is for this reason that heartbreak, though painful, is holy. It is the fire through which the ego is tempered, the crucible in which the heart becomes capable of divine love. Without it, love would remain a shallow transaction, a barter of needs and fears. With it, love becomes what it was always meant to be, the path to wholeness, the road by which the soul returns to itself. If you observe closely, you will see that those who have suffered deeply often possess a gentleness, a quiet strength, a compassion that cannot be faked. It is as if the fire that once consumed them now burns softly within, illuminating their eyes with understanding. Such people are not naive. They have seen the depths and returned. They have learned that love is not possession but presence, not désir but dévotion, not demand but surrender. To surrender is not to give up. It is to align oneself with the rhythm of the soul. It is to accept that love, like life, is a movement. It comes and goes, dies, and is reborn. To cling to what was is to resist the natural cycle of transformation. The river does not mourn the water that has passed. It flows on, carrying the memory of all it has touched. And so, too, must we. The heart's purpose is not to remain unbroken, but to remain open. Every breaking expands its capacity. Every loss deepens its wisdom. The soul does not seek comfort, it seeks meaning. It is meaning, not happiness, that heals in time. If one has walked faithfully through the valley of heartbreak, something within begins to shift. The pain no longer feels like punishment, but like initiation. The memories of love lost begin to glow with quiet gratitude. We realize that what we once called heartbreak was, in truth, the soul's awakening, the necessary disillusionment that made space for the real. For what is love, if not the eternal desire of the soul to return to itself? There comes a moment, after the storm of heartbreak has spent its rage, when a deep stillness descends. It is not peace, not yet, but a silence, as though the soul itself has paused to listen. In that silence, something begins to speak, not in words, but in symbols, in images that rise from the depths like forgotten stars emerging after the clouds have passed. This is the moment when the psyche begins to reveal what the heartbreak was truly for. You see, the soul does not speak in the language of logic. It speaks in dreams, in visions, in the subtle movements of emotion and intuition. When a relationship shatters, the soul may send a dream of a house collapsing, or of wandering through an endless forest, or of a bird struggling to fly with broken wings. These are not mere fantasies. They are messages, fragments of a deeper truth. They tell us that something in us has died and that something new seeks to be born. Heartbreak is one of the psyche's most profound teachers because it strips away illusion. It exposes the fragility of our certainties, the limits of our control, and the vulnerability that underlies all human striving. When we lose what we most love, we are forced to confront the question that stands at the center of all spiritual life: who am I? When all that I cling to is gone, the ego trembles before this question. It cannot answer, for it was built upon attachments to roles, to identities, to others, to dreams of how life should be. But the self, the deeper center of the psyche, waits patiently behind the ruins. It knows that the purpose of heartbreak is not destruction, but revelation. It reveals that we are not who we thought we were. We are something larger, older, and infinitely more mysterious. If one listens closely in the aftermath of loss, one may feel the presence of this deeper center. It is quiet, almost imperceptible, a still point amid the chaos. It does not offer explanations, only presence. And if we are patient enough, we begin to sense that this presence has always been there, even when we were lost in love, even when we were consumed by grief. It is the eternal witness within, the part of us that never breaks. I once wrote that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. It is a simple statement, but it carries immense truth. Pain, especially the pain of the heart, is the summons to consciousness. It tears the veil between what we know and what we are meant to know. It is the hand of the self reaching up from the depths, saying, "Come home." Modern man has forgotten how to suffer consciously. He avoids pain at all costs. Yet in doing so, he forfeits the wisdom it carries. He numbs the wound instead of listening to it. But the soul cannot evolve through avoidance. It grows only through experience lived, felt, endured. To suffer consciously is to allow the pain to shape us, to transform us into something more real, more human, more whole. When the ancients spoke of initiation, they spoke of descent into darkness, into the underworld, into the unknown. Heartbreak is our modern initiation. It is the descent into the underworld of the psyche, where we meet the gods we have forgotten and the shadows we have denied. The journey is perilous, for there are many temptations along the way. The temptation to become bitter, to close the heart, to reject love altogether. But if we endure, if we remain faithful to the call of the inner world, we will find that the underworld is not a place of punishment, but of renewal. There, in the depths, one may encounter the lost parts of the soul, the child who was never loved, the lover who was betrayed, the dreamer who was silenced. Each of these fragments longs to be brought back into the light. They are the very essence of our humanity, and as we gather them, as we welcome them home, we begin to feel a strange sense of gratitude for the heartbreak that brought us here. For it was only through the breaking that the light could enter. Many people ask, how can I love again after I have been broken? The answer is paradoxical. Only through the breaking can one truly love. The heart that has never been broken cannot love freely. It loves with expectation, with fear, with control. But the heart that has been broken and has healed, that heart knows the truth. It knows that love is not about possessing another, but about allowing life itself to move through you. It is not about seeking completion, but about sharing wholeness. You must understand, love does not end. When a relationship ends, the form changes, but the essence remains. The love you gave, the love you received. The love that seemed to vanish it all remains within you, transmuted into wisdom, into compassion, into depth. When you love again, it will not be as the one who was once innocent, but as the one who has seen. You will no longer seek to merge with another to escape your loneliness, but to meet them as a fellow traveler on the path of becoming. And this, I believe, is a hidden purpose of Heartbreak. It teaches us how to love, not as the ego loves, but as the soul loves. The ego loves to possess, the soul loves to unite. The ego fears loss. The soul embraces transformation. The ego demands certainty. The soul finds beauty in mystery. When we learn to love as the soul does, we no longer cling, we participate. We no longer demand permanence, we bless impermanence. This shift is the essence of individuation. It is the moment when the center of gravity moves from the ego to the self, from the temporary to the eternal. The one who has undergone this transformation no longer seeks love as an escape from the self, but as an expression of it. Love becomes not a need, but a radiance, not a wound, but a way of being. If humanity could understand this, if we could see that every heartbreak is a step in the evolution of consciousness, then perhaps we would suffer differently. We would still weep, for tears are holy. We would still grieve, for love is sacred. But we would not despair. We would know that in every ending is a beginning, in every loss, a revelation, in every heartbreak, the whisper of the self saying, become who you are. In the long arc of the soul's journey, every relationship, every love, every loss serves the same purpose, to awaken us to the eternal within. Some loves are brief and burning, others last a lifetime, but each one, in its own way, shapes the vessel of the heart so that it may contain more of the divine. We often think the goal of love is happiness, but happiness is fleeting. The true goal of love is transformation. And transformation requires that we die to what we were over and over again. The butterfly must abandon the cocoon. The phoenix must burn before it can rise. The soul, too, must shed its illusions, must pass through the crucible of heartbreak before it can remember what it truly is. So if you find yourself in the ashes of love, do not despair. Sit among them quietly. Touch them. There, in the silence, you will feel the faint pulse of life returning. Something is being born within you, something vast, something ancient, something real. The old self has died, but the new self is stirring. Trust that the soul knows what it is doing. Trust that the fire that burned you was also the light that guides you. When you emerge, you will not be the same. The world will look different, not brighter, But deeper, the faces of others will seem more fragile, more luminous. You will see the pain in their eyes and recognize it as your own. And you will love them not because they complete you, but because you understand that they too are fragments of the same divine whole, walking the same mysterious path toward home. This is the alchemy of heartbreak, the transmutation of pain into wisdom, of loss into love, of suffering into consciousness. It is the soul's way of remembering itself through the brokenness of human life. And in that remembering lies the greatest truth, that love was never lost, for it was never outside you. The task of the awakened heart is to live in this truth, to love without fear, to lose without despair, to die and be reborn with each passing moment. Then love is no longer a story of two, but the dance of one life expressing itself through many forms. And so I leave you with this: the heart that breaks is the heart that grows. The soul that suffers is the soul that awakens. The human who loves and loses again and again is the one who becomes divine. Ask yourself then, not how do I heal from heartbreak, but rather, what is the soul within me trying to become through this breaking?